Yo. Olá pessoal, sejam bem-vindos a mais um vídeo. Hoje estamos aqui para ver um vídeo que me apareceu nos recomendados e eu comecei a ver um bocadinho e pensei, ok, eu não quero ver isto sozinho, para vocês vão ter que ver isto comigo, se quiserem, obviamente. Aviso desde já que isto provavelmente vai ser claustrofóbico e cenas do género, portanto se vocês tiverem ansiedades e coisas do género, se calhar este vídeo não é o melhor para vocês verem. De qualquer das formas, este é o pior acidente na história, o pior acidente de mergulhadores da história, chamado o incidente do mergulho Pior. Instant Gaming, pessoal, é o patrocinador deste vídeo, já sabem, jogos a altos descontos, jogos acabadinhos de sair com descontos incríveis e também jogos, sabem a quanto? A €1. O link está na descrição, aproveitem. Eu acho que já ouvi falar deste caso e inclusive vi algumas coisas, mas já foi há algum tempo, então vamos ver aqui um bocadinho.
Where beneath the tranquil waters of Point Pior, Trinidad,
eu acho que não consegui fazer estes trabalhos, estava a pensar nisso, olha aí.
A high-pressure job that not only seals pipelines, but also fates. This is the story of the Pior diving incident.
O pessoal está ali preso, mano.
Scientifically interesting ways to die. This time long form,
é muito interessante.
The story is still unfolding to this day. On February 25th of 2022,
foi há 3 anos, ou 4, vá.
Coast of Trinidad,
há 4
5
anos.
commercial divers are carrying out what should be a routine job on an underwater oil pipeline near a port.
Mas tudo o que envolve debaixo d'água, man. Olha aí, chegaram estes gajos.
Kazimel Jr., Yusuf Henry, Fazil Kurban, and Rishi Nagazar, all experienced divers. Their task was to make repairs at Berth 6, an underwater riser pipeline used by the Pior Fuel Trading Company. To do this, the divers were working in a hyperbaric chamber, an underwater habitat maintained under pressure to provide a dry working environment. As part of the repair, the crews must remove an inflatable plug inside the pipeline, inserted into the pipe to seal it and prevent remaining hydrocarbons from escaping out into the environment. Around 3 p.m, GoPro footage captures Kazimel Jr. as he collects a wrench required for the removal of the plug and hands it to Chris Boodram, who hands it off to another member of the repair team. As Kazimel Jr. begins to lift himself out of the water and onto the platform, his team begins to loosen the inflatable plug. But unbeknownst to them, the pipeline beyond the plug is essentially a vacuum. It has been drained of oil weeks earlier, leaving an empty space where temperature changes, trapped air, or the weight of the ocean itself had caused dangerously low pressures between the pipeline and the platform. This scenario is known as delta P, or differential pressure, where the pressure difference can generate thousands of pounds of force.
Caralho, o caranguejo fodeu-se todo, mano.
The plug loosened, the chamber was cast into chaos.
Aí foram sugados, mano. Foram 100% sugados, a água entra e o vácuo, tinha ali vácuo, aquele sugou e eles vão para dentro do tubo, mano. Olha, ai meu Deus, há vídeo disto.
For 95 seconds, the divers are thrown about like ragdolls as they barrel through the metal walls of the pipeline. Just as their bodies
que aflição, mano!
They skid to a stop. And slowly, the horror of their new reality sets in.
Ai, mano, eu não sei como é que reagir nesta situação. Não sei. Juro que não sei, mano. Ou sei lá, invocava um mano todo fodido, ou então começava logo a pensar solução. Eu acho que pensava logo solução, só que no meio de um tubo que eu, mano, debaixo d'água, aí é que foi sugado, aí eu sei lá.
They are entombed within a claustrophobic 30-inch diameter metal pipeline,
ok, ainda há alguns
16 meters below the ocean
16 metros por
debaixo.
debaixo.
Their eyes burn from the oil residue that still coats the
pois aquilo está cheio de
interior
óleo,
of the pipe, and each breath stings their lungs from the remaining fumes.
Within a second, it was like, oh, Nido, everything just
questão dos sobreviventes.
Happened so fast, you couldn't react. I didn't even remember actually getting pulled in the pipe. I just remember getting pulled through the pipe.
Só
pois. Hold my breath no longer, man. Truth. When you hold in your breath for too long, after a while, your body, your lungs just fight. Try to gas it, and when you're forcing your airways close, you see a noise.
Ele está a descrever. Até a mim estou a ficar sem ar de ouvir a falar o homem, mano. Foda. Ai.
Your body suffering.
Foda-se, tive que bocejar para ir buscar ar, mano. Foda-se.
Unbelievable nightmare. Eyes burning. Every time you try to open your eyes, it's burning.
Por causa do óleo.
You're pitch black, you can't see
tudo
nothing.
Escuro.
Your throat burning. Your ears ringing. Your body sore.
Mano, ele está a reviver. Ele está a contar isto e está a reviver, mano.
And at that point, I tell myself I was gonna dead.
Claro. O que é que tu pensas, mano? Não pensas que vais sair dali? Ele saiu. Será que os outros saíram?
And find themselves trapped inside the pipeline in an air bubble that has been created by undulations of the sea floor. For a moment, there was panic, but also relief. Alive and conscious, they call out to each other.
Eu pensava mesmo que eles iam morrer com a força do vácuo, bater com a cabeça no tubo e não sei o que, né? Sem capacete, sem nada. Isto é lá dentro.
Somewhere in the darkness, Chris Boodram realizes his left arm is badly hurt, possibly dislocated or fractured, as well as his ankle. The others call out with similar injuries.
Carl, everything alright with you? No. Any elements break?
Partiu as pernas.
Yusuf, anything happened to you? Yeah, boy. What happened?
Despite the pain, adrenaline kicks in.
Claro.
They must find a way out.
Neste momento não lhes deve estar a doer, mas...
But the divers don't know exactly how far they've been pulled or which direction they are now facing. One end of this pipeline leads back to the subsea habitat where they came from.
Ok,
the
eram
other
dali.
way leads to berth 5.
E com caralho, isto aqui daqui até ali são 2.5 campos de futebol. E ali é berth 5.
An onshore refinery which has been firmly sealed due to the repairs.
Então não podem ir para ali.
After some debate, they make their best
Tiveram que
guess
subir
at
do
a
outro
direction
lado.
and start to drag their battered bodies through the pipeline. As they do, they come across an oxygen tank, which
Olha,
they
boa.
periodically take sips from to keep clean air in their system and fight off the
tiveram
impending
muita
nausea
sorte.
and delirium. The going is slow and tough, slipping against the pipe residue and injured
E o
by the
óleo,
trauma.
pois.
Several of the men can only move for moments at a time before exhaustion
Claro,
sets in and they need to rest. They also start to notice another problem. The water level in the pipeline is slowly starting to rise as they head into a downward section of the line. They continue onward on their backs until Chris Boodram has only 6 inches of air.
Mas provavelmente vai ter água aqui, mas depois há outro vácuo, né? Ou seja, não é o vácuo, outro bolha de ar, bolsa de ar.
And the top of the pipeline. It is around this time that Chris comes across a second oxygen tank,
Que
but
cagadela.
also a realization that they can't continue like this. Chris, still able to move forward, suggests that he will take one of the 2 oxygen tanks and push on to find help.
We can't go no more further like this.
Este foi o...
There's a lot of water ahead. We only have 2 tanks.
Só tem 2 tanques.
You're not sure if the tank's full. I make them understand the situation.
Leaving the other 4 men behind in the
Ele
darkness
está a
to rest
chorar,
in a
mano.
small
Deve ter, mas foi uma
air
experiência.
pocket in the pipeline, sharing whatever breathable air remains. Chris uses his remaining good arm and legs to pull himself through the flooded pipeline.
Okay.
As the water fills the pipeline entirely, he flips over onto his front, pushing the tank ahead of him and starts to swim. Not
É assim,
knowing if
eles são experientes,
he's
né?
headed
Mas
towards
mesmo
safety,
assim, depois ele
or
não sabe
deeper
nada.
into trouble. Slowly, he starts to notice that it becomes harder and harder to draw air from the tank. His
Está a ficar sem
oxygen
oxigênio.
supply is running out,
Pois.
and he knows his only hope is finding another air pocket somewhere within the pipeline. As each breath gets harder and harder
Então
to
tem
pull
que
in,
encontrar
he takes
outro.
what he believes to be his final breath from the tank. And just as he thinks his fate is sealed,
Estás a
he collides
gozar.
with a second air tank. Frantically driving the tank into his mouth, he gulps
Deus também estava do lado dele, ou quer que exista, eu estava do lado dele, man. Fogo. Não era a vez, mano, no meio do caos, estás a ver? No meio da aflição.
Each more agonizing than the last, until finally he breaks through the surface of the water into a secondary air pocket, this time halfway filled with water. As Chris moves through the air pocket, he comes across a third oxygen tank, and as he does so, he hears a noise behind him, and from the water emerges Faisal with the remaining oxygen tank.
Okay.
Faisal urges Chris to pause and rest, but Chris refuses, saying they've already been in the pipeline too long already. As Chris pushes on ahead, Faisal pauses to rest, promising to follow behind him.
Bro, isto é fodido, este gajo arriscou a
Now
vida.
carrying his 2 oxygen.
Também não tinha muita outra opção, né? Mas tipo, consegui ter esse sangue frio da adrenalina.
It is only a short swim further of
Ele
10
está a levar
to
este
20
tanque porque
meters
tem medo
before
de
Chris
ficar sem
again
ar, né?
collides with something. This time, the upward bend of the
Okay.
pipeline. He has made it to one of the berths.
Okay.
Unsure if he's at berth 5 or 6, he knows that he is now moments
Atenção, isto tudo no escuro. Se ele vê um caralho, né?
away from discovering potential escape or certain death. As he heads up the vertical section of the pipe, he doesn't find the inflatable plug that would have otherwise been in place sealing berth 5. He has found the dive chamber, but to his astonishment, no rescue team is there.
Não estava lá ninguém.
His heart sinks. He drops the half-full tank below him, knowing that it would descend slowly in case
Certo.
Faisal was surfacing beneath him.
Exato.
But as he reaches out to pull himself out of the pipeline, he finds the rim of the pipe sits just inches out of reach.
E o gajo não consegue subir. E deve estar cansado,
he
pois.
clings to a chain which hangs in place and prays someone will find him. Time passes agonizingly slowly as he sits in the darkness. Then suddenly, he hears a knock on the outside of the pipeline.
Ok.
Instinctively, he knocks back.
Vieram buscá-los.
Close to blacking out, faint and exhausted, a light suddenly emerges into the dive chamber above.
Ok, salvaram-no.
At 6 p.m., now more than 2 hours after the initial incident.
2 horas de lá dentro e ninguém fez nada, mano. Demoraram 2 horas a chegar lá.
Chris is finally pulled free. The crews on the dive barge haul him aboard, battered, covered in oil and coughing up water, but alive. He immediately tells the others that the 4 other men are still down there, alive as far as he knows, and pleads with them to mount a rescue immediately.
Okay.
Divers topside are gearing up to do just that.
Okay.
Several volunteers, including the son of one of the trapped men, are getting ready to go back down to the habitat and into the pipe.
Ui, ok, mano, eu acho que lá está. Se fosse o meu pai, se calhar eu ia, mano. Não é se calhar, é 100% ia. Estava-me a cagar, mano. Ou meu pai, alguém, não, talvez amigo, até família.
With every passing minute,
aliás, eu devia ir de qualquer das formas, né? Mas quando é nosso é diferente.
Oxygen remaining in the pipeline dwindles. First, a short dive attempt is made to the bottom of the elbow, where the air tank Chris dropped is retrieved. And some accounts also tell of divers knocking on the outside of the pipeline
para saber onde é que eles estão.
points and hearing knocks back from the trapped men inside. But shockingly, it is at this critical moment in the rescue effort that it is halted. The officials in charge of Pior Fuel Trading, the company that operates the pipeline, decided it is too dangerous to send in rescue divers.
Ah, mano, como assim too dangerous, bro? Como assim too dangerous? Não acho que seja. Se fores com com as áreas de oxigênio como eles estão a ir, mandas algumas e vais trocar, sei lá, não sei, ou uma corda também, para levar uma corda ao pessoal ir puxando, né? Todos por uma corda. Epá, não sei, também não sei quanto é que é a distância aqui neste vídeo.
There is no commercial dive equipment available on site. Instead of an immediate rescue, a slow, cautious approach is taken. And despite the arrival between 6 and 7 p.m. of 2 further dive vessels, both fully equipped with commercial diving equipment, the company decrees a total ban on diving, fearing
o quê, mano? Como assim?
a secondary Delta P event could still occur. Around 8 p.m, bangs
com medo que o outro Delta P viesse talvez por causa do outro lado?
are heard on the pipeline near berth 5. Hearing of the accident, families of the divers now wait in the refinery car park, desperate for further news.
Claro.
Later in the night, the dive team bring in an ROV to the entrance of berth 6 and try and probe the pipeline to locate the men. This process takes several hours and ultimately fails as the ROV becomes tangled in one of the oxygen tanks remaining in the pipeline. At 2:30 a.m. now on Saturday, bangs are again heard at the riser.
Eles ficaram lá quanto tempo?
The pipe of berth 5. All through the night of February 25th and into the weekend, families and colleagues of the trapped men wait in agony for news.
Os homens ficaram lá tanto tempo?
But the Pior Trading Company doesn't communicate with them. Hope remains firm that maybe the 4 divers found a stable air pocket and could survive for many further hours. Divers on standby are reportedly itching and ready to go, some even willing to take the risk and dive without official approval.
Claro que se foda, mano, então.
Unsubstantiated claims suggest that Chris even tries to check himself out of the hospital to mount his own rogue rescue op.
Bro, o gajo que saiu queria voltar para salvar os amigos, man. Isto é heroico.
But
antes de sequer conseguir andar.
No divers are allowed back in the pipeline, but equally, no alternative rescue attempts are being made.
Então é isso, mano. Foda-se, corta a puta do tubo, mano. Que se foda, são vidas, mano. Vale muito mais do que o que quer que seja material, mano.
Finally, after hours of anguished waiting, a fateful plan is formed. The Pior Fuel Trading Company authorizes the removal of the berth 5 blind flange, the seal at the mainland end of the pipeline. However, in the 13 hours that Kazimel Jr., Yusuf Henry, Fazl Kurban and Rishi Nagazar have spent at the bottom of the pipeline, their bodies have now adjusted to the increased pressure of the environment, estimated to be somewhere between 2 and 3 atmospheres of pressure. This pressure is also what is holding the water in place and supporting the last remaining air pockets.
Se eles abrem aquela merda, ardeu, né?
Within the pipeline. At around 6 a.m, teams are ordered to remove the berth 5 flange, and just a split second, the pressure in the pipeline drops from 2 atmospheres to 1. Immediately, the water level in the berth 6 riser is seen to drop by about 11 meters as the water rushes to redistribute through the pipeline, forcing out remaining air pockets and flooding it entirely. In this moment, the 4 trapped men's fates are sealed.
Oh, mano, o quê? O quê? Mas está tudo bem? E não sabem essa merda. Mano, quem deu a autorização ou quem fez isso, bro, despedido, mano, aliás, preso.
Either they succumb to the effects of rapid decompression as gas bubbles form in their blood supply, or alternatively as the air pockets collapse, they simply drown. We don't know what happened in between, but it wasn't until 6 p.m. that night, 12 hours later, that the families were notified that efforts had moved from rescue to retrieval. On Monday, 28th of February 2022 at around 6 p.m, the bodies of Casimir Jr., Yusuf Henry and Faisal Kurban were retrieved from the pipeline.
Como é que foram, mano? Alguém teve que ir lá buscá-los, não? Ou seja, qual é que era a diferença, mano?
The fourth diver, Rishi Nagazar, was retrieved a few days later in the early hours of Thursday, the 3rd of March. The later autopsies revealed that all trapped men had survived at least until Saturday morning, with one potentially surviving until Monday. Devastated by this outcome, an official commission of inquiry was convened in 2022 to investigate the incident. In late 2023, the findings it delivered were damning. The commission reported that Paria had no proper rescue plan in place for such an emergency, and that it had not made any real attempt at rescue. During the inquiry, Paria officials had stated that they had no legal responsibility to rescue the men.
Que filhas da puta, mano. É mesmo falta de empatia, falta de noção, falta de tudo, mano. Eu percebo que é tipo, ok, não vamos mandar se calhar mais pessoas porque pode correr mal, mas é tipo, fizeram pior.
Once the accident had occurred, fearing exposing themselves and the company to greater liability. The commission condemned Paria's actions and inaction as amounting to gross negligence, possibly criminal.
How would you rate
the
management of this incident on that day? Excellent.
Yeah, okay.
Very much.
Sim.
4 men died on an incident that you were to manage, and you consider that excellent.
This starts prioritizing liability concerns.
E depois quem é que fica? A família, né? É a família que fica. A empresa continua a fazer os seus milhões, o que for preciso, né? Está-se bem, não sei o quê. E a família é que se fode.
For the urgent life-saving efforts required, outraged many.
It's a balancing act, right?
It might be a different balancing act if it was your father that was in the pipe or your son.
In September of 2024, charges were filed against the managers of the Paria Trading Company and Land and Marine Contracting Services, the company contracted by Paria to repair the pipeline. But just last week, in June of 2025, the Privy Council presiding over this case heard arguments that could determine whether anyone is ever held legally accountable.
Aí está, man. São merdas assim que me tiram um bocado a esperança nas coisas, né? Mano, é uma empresa de óleo, de petróleo. Tipo, né? Claro que vão tentar fazer tudo para não sair culpados. Tipo, inclusive, né? Ou inclusive outras coisas que nós não conseguimos imaginar, né?
The statute of limitations for this case, the maximum time period after an event during which legal proceedings can be initiated,
ok, prescreveu,
is 6 months. The criminal cases brought by Trinidad's Occupational Safety Agency fall outside the 6-month window following the 2023 Commission report.
Pronto, mano, deixou, não aconteceu. Se não reportaste, não aconteceu, né? Pá, se não entraste com um processo, não funciona. É pá, sério.
So this criminal case may be thrown out entirely on a technicality. As of last week, the council has reserved judgment on this matter. In the end, the tragedy of the Paria diving incident serves as a stark reminder of what happens when the laws of physics meet human error.
Claro que sim, exatamente, mas erro humano aos quais os que estavam lá dentro não tiveram culpa porque ninguém lhes avisou que se calhar o óleo tinha sido sugado e havia vácuo e não sei o quê, não é?
Valor and cowardice. Just as Mother Nature abhors a vacuum, we must abhor those who hold profits over people.
Because everything inside me open and rescue going on. Everything inside me open and rescue was going on. Nobody was making an attempt to rescue me.
Ai, mano, não imagina esta merda, que sensação de impotência, de injustiça, de raiva, de frustração, man. Ok, isto foi em julho de 2025, portanto há quase um ano, desde... Ninguém foi condenado pelas vidas perdidas na tragédia. As famílias ainda esperam por justiça. Foda-se, mano. Eu fiquei enjoado depois desta merda, man. Fiquei completamente enjoado depois disto. Eu não consigo, pessoal, não consigo. Não consigo imaginar a angústia. O meu coração está acelerado neste momento. Não consigo imaginar a angústia de todas as pessoas envolvidas, mas acima de tudo, e eu nem digo dos homens, é do homem que conseguiu sair e deixou lá os outros para os ir salvar, que fez de tudo Foi oxigênio, subiu, avisou, estava no hospital à espera, mano, e ninguém a fazer nada. E no final ninguém é responsabilizado. Claro. Foda-se, está aos olhos de toda a gente, mano. Foda-se qualquer lei. Desculpem lá. Há casos em que é tipo, caralho. Foda-se, né? Mas não. Mano, não sei, olha. Nem sei como terminar este vídeo. Que merda, man. Que cena bizarra. Como sempre, a vida dos seres humanos está sempre depois. O dinheiro importa mais. A reputação. Não sei. Acho nojento. Mas enfim, pessoal, olha. Este foi o vídeo. Acabou aqui o vídeo está muito bem explicado. Mas eu acabo aqui um bocadinho num tom muito triste, pelo menos para mim. Acho que não é mesmo nada justo 4 vidas terem sido... Aliás, a vida é injusta, né? Nós sabemos, mas isto foi mesmo só parvoíce. Enfim, pessoal, este foi o vídeo. Espero que tenham gostado de alguma forma. E é isso, está bem? Um beijinho, fiquem bem. Até a próxima.